Although it may look like it, this is not in fact an ancient computer game being played under DOS-box, it just looks the part. This is MURI, we'll call it MURI, it's easier to pronounce, for Windows, a 2013 release conceived by Remar Games. 2013, I guess you would call it ancient, it was released last year, I guess. MURI is a straightforward side-scrolling action platform game that is modeled after the old-school DOS-based side-scrolling action games of the old days, such as the old Duke Nukem games and other similar bits. And in terms of presentation alone, MURI nails the look, sound, and feel of an old DOS video game, or DOS computer game, whatever. The first thing I'll address right off the bat is the sound. It's all PC speaker noise with no sound card support, so if you hate PC speaker noise for whatever reason, you can just as well mute the volume because that's all you're going to get from this game. Like I said, MURI is supposed to come off as a game made in the early days of DOS gaming, and you can't get much more early than limited EGA color palettes and PC speaker noise. And it sounds rather fitting for the era. They basically sound the part, they're not annoying, and there's a bit of a charm in that sort of thing. In any case, MURI is a side-scrolling action platform game thing where you play as MURI. Well, MURI is just the suit that you're wearing. You actually play as a character called Kojo, who is looking for his wife and kids, and there's a story, there's a proper story, but other than providing backstory and a couple of cutscenes here and there, it's largely irrelevant. Your main goal in MURI is to navigate the level and find the exit to the next level. Each level is essentially a maze where you move about collecting bonuses and additional weapons while fending off against the various enemies scattered about. Sometimes you'll have to deactivate barriers which will impede your progress, usually done by destroying the power source. There are lifts you can control to reach higher areas, and there are hidden passages that you can uncover by walking through walls or just blowing them up. In terms of control in MURI, you can use either the keyboard or the gamepad if you have one of those laying around. Either one works well enough, and control is pretty solid for the most part. It's the most basic set of platforming skills at your disposal. You run, you jump, you duck, you shoot, you control lifts up and down, and that's pretty much all you do in regards to control, and that's about all you need. MURI is pretty straightforward in terms of the gameplay and is a pretty well-crafted game that nails the feel of an old-school DOS game, offering 4 episodes of play that you could choose from. The action is enclosed in a square occupying a good chunk of the screen, while the rest is home to various statistics such as health, score, lives, and weapons ammunition. Seems constricted and limited, but it's never detrimental. Levels are large and maze-like, but at times you'll come across signs that will point you in the right direction, and you have your fair share of weapons such as rapid-fire, multi-shots, and missiles, varying in uses. The weapons are automatically selected and you can't swap between any of them, but it doesn't hurt the game in any way. In any case, it's pretty straightforward and it's quite enjoyable fare. If there was any one complaint to be had with MURI, well, actually there's 2 quibbles. One is the lack of a save function, which might annoy a few people and is something of an inconvenience, but it's not a deal breaker. The other complaint I have with MURI is, quite frankly, it's too damn short. Yes, you have 4 episodes to choose from, but each episode comprises 5 levels including a boss level, and while the later episodes and later levels boast some degree of challenge with more involved platforming and tougher opponents, challenge that can be toggled with a skill select mind you, once you figure out all the nooks and crannies of each level, it shouldn't take you long to complete. Probably an hour or so. Perhaps even less than that if you're really good. Fine for a short romp, but I just wish the game was just a tad longer. Add a couple levels in there for good measure, maybe find a couple secret ones. Oh well, not a total loss though, and what game is there is very well done. MURI manages to replicate the style of the old school DOS platformer quite well, opting to emulate the stylings and limitations of an EGA graphics card. For those not well versed in that kind of technical lingo, EGA graphics displayed only 16 colors on screen at a time, to keep it simple. So a lot of the graphics comprise solid colors with a little shading to be found here and there, easily passing itself off as something from that earlier era of gaming. The overall layout of the game screen reminds me of the original Duke Nukem from ages ago. The graphics in general are pretty decent for the most part and works well within the self-imposed limitations of the visual style. And the scrolling in general is choppy much like the old classics, and that's a good thing for authenticity purposes. There is an option to toggle the frame rate between the authentic 16 frames per second and the much smoother 30 frames per second, which is a much appreciated but ultimately unneeded addition. Look, if you're going to include this option, you might as well include different graphical styles and sound card support for those who can't stand looking at ancient DOS graphics and listening to ancient PC speaker noise. But then again, if you can't stand that sort of thing, I don't know why you even want to play something like this in the first place. One way or another, Remark Games have crafted an absolutely wonderful game in MURI, sort of a love letter to a past era of computer gaming, and a nice little tribute to that style of platformer. But when you put that all aside, MURI is still a fun, retro-style platform game that, while a bit on the short side, manages to be solidly built, challenging, and engaging. Definitely one worth checking out if you're into old school DOS platformers, but if you just like platformers in general and you want something a little bit kinda sorta different, I'd say give MURI a shot. It's only a couple bucks and it's well worth it. Good stuff to be found here indeed.